Good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Burnman. I'm a Chicago architect. I was born in 1846 on September the 4th in a very small town called Henderson, right outside New York. My parents moved away while I was very young, so I didn't actually grow up in Henderson. I grew up in Chicago. Thank God for that. My parents were quite Christian, to be honest, and I was raised with the belief that a man should strive to be a service of others. While I was young, I wanted to get into politics, so I applied for Yale and Harvard, but I sadly failed my admission test and never got accepted. I regretted this my whole life, but after my failed attempts, I decided to try running for Senate. But as you probably can guess, I didn't get elected. My political dreams were shattered, and with a history full of failure, I, at an age of 26, moved to Chicago offices of Carter, Drake and White. It's in this exact office where I would meet my beloved friend and dear business partner, John Wellborn Root. John and I grew very close. We were we were kind of the dynamic duo of Chicago's architecture at that time. John and I were architects on one of America's first skyscrapers, the Masonic Temple Building in Chicago, measuring an astounding 21 floors and 302 feet tall. Right after that, John and I took over responsibility to oversee design and construction of World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. But after my dear friend's untimely death, I had to take over the job as chief architect of this project. After his death, we also kinda changed around the design. John wanted a cheerful, colorful style, but we went with a classical revival style instead. Under my supervision, we also overcame huge financial hurdles, including a worldwide financial panic and an extremely tight time frame. One of my works in New York City, the Flatiron Building, has become a symbol for New Yorkers and will often be seen on postcards from New York. Under the construction of the building, many critics believed that the building would fall due to its triangular shape and incredible height. This was commonly known as the Burnham's Folly. I repeatedly assured them that this would not happen, and at the grand opening of the building, the site was crowded. Edward Stein, an Luxembourgian American photographer, took a very popular photo of this building a few years later. My vision with the Flatiron Building was to create something that would make people stop up and just look at the building. I wanted to catch people off guard with something that they have never seen before. As I've always said, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. Make big plans, aim high, and hope and work, remembering that a noble, logical diagram once recorded will never die. But long after we are gone, be a living thing asserting itself with ever-growing intensity, remembering that our sons and our grandsons are going to do things that will stagger us. Let your watchword be order and your beacon beauty. Today the building is mainly used as headquarters for publishing companies. Currently it's held by Verlagsgruppen Georg von Holzbrinck of Stuttgart, Germany, under the umbrella name Macmillan. Many young people today are striving to get jobs there. For example, Michael, my dear friend. Here is his story.
I was on my way towards the Flatiron Building where my last interview for the day would be, but little did I know that I was to be astonished by what was going to happen. My name is Michael, a common name in such a large city as the Big Apple, but that's how it is. I'm currently on the lookout for a digital design job, and this is the last place that I have to go. A small paper based in the Flatiron Building, which is actually quite normal, but what's unusual here is the fact that I have never seen this building. How awkward is that? A New Yorker that has never seen one of the most shown tourist attractions in the city. Oh, and that's of course after the Statue of Liberty. I guess that I might have forgotten that while growing up here, and it wasn't exactly a possibility under my education. That sure was a rough ride going through college and the IT university. That's how it can be in such a getting such a great education. But how can it be with such a great education and experience in the field that I still can't seem to get a job? I really don't get it. But now it was time for the interview. I rushed out of the subway a few blocks away because of some maintenance problems at the closest station to the actual building. So it was a short running trip down the 5th Avenue that hopefully wouldn't soak me up in the stench of sweat. I was a few hundred feet away from the building when I started to notice the huge crowd of tourists that I would have to clear my way through if I wanted any chance of getting to the interview in time. I reached the Flatiron Plaza that was just before the building itself and started to notice some of the magnificent shops that was placed all around. Exquisite cuisine was to be seen in all of the restaurants, exclusive shopping items in every window, and this was all over. I slowly pushed away through the masses of tourists crowding the streets, and when I was in the midst of all this chaos, I looked towards the building and saw the beautiful terracotta walls shining in the sunny May weather. The building had a lot of nice details to it, and I completely forgot time. I just stood there for a few moments to look at the spectacular design when somebody rushed into me. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" he said. I couldn't believe my own eyes. This was the guy I was supposed to see for the interview. He must also have forgotten time, because we were both late. He didn't recognize me at first, but asked me a few moments if I was Michael that he was supposed to interview. I then of course said yes, and I was late because of the maintenance at the station. He then told me that he ran into the same problem, but he didn't arrive at the same station as I. He then asked me if it wouldn't bother me if we didn't go to the office, and in all of my politeness I said yes. He told me it was because the air condition was broken and the office was burning hot, and I think he wanted to avoid sweat stains as much as I. We then went to a cafe located just across the road from the building so that I still could see the building. He then presented himself as the guy that was responsible for the media portion of the newspaper, both virtually and physically. His name was Frederick Jensen, a man in the middle 30s with a weird style of clothing. No suit, no fancy shoes, and no fancy watch. He was just a man in a white shirt with a set of black pants and jogging shoes. He seems pretty casually looking to me. We sat there for quite some time and had a really shifting conversation about all sorts of subjects with no relevance to the interview. But during the whole time there I couldn't take my eyes off that building, and fortunately I had been seated where it pointed towards it. The shining terracotta walls, the limestone walls at the bottom, all melded together into a beautiful Beaux Arts Renaissance palazzo with a modern kick to it. And from what I heard from Frederick, that building would be my new workplace. Finally a job that was just for me, with a very down underground boss.